I like it because one thing I know for sure is that if you get married, you must fully commit to it. Cliff Richard loved one woman for 50 years. But she married his best friend instead, then married someone else later. In the end, she died in Cliff's arms. He never got married, never had children. He just kept singing, even while hiding the deepest heartbreak in British music history. In 2014, police raided Cliff Richard's home, but they weren't the first ones to hurt him. The BBC had already made a secret deal to broadcast the raid live. The accusations against him were false, but the damage was very real. He lost a lot of weight, developed shingles from the stress, and couldn't sleep. He said his own house no longer felt like home. It felt dirty and contaminated. This was the same man who once filled Wembley Stadium with thousands of fans. Now he was afraid to even leave his home. Cliff was born on October 14, 1940, in King George's Hospital in Lucknow, British India. At that time, World War II was still going on, and India was fighting for its independence. In 1946, huge riots broke out during Direct Action Day. Many British families began leaving the country. Cliff's family was one of them. His father worked for the British government, but by 1948, it was clear that the British Empire in India was ending. So the family left. Not by plane or car, but on a crowded ship called the SS Ranchi. The trip took 3 long weeks across the Indian Ocean. Hundreds of British families were on board, leaving the only home they had ever known. They went from living in big houses with servants in sunny weather to small homes and grey skies in post-war England. Life in England was tough. They ended up living in a modest house in Surrey. This hard beginning made Cliff stronger. It planted a deep desire in him to prove himself and create a better life. Soon, Harry Webb, his real name, became someone else. A man named Harry Greatorex, a talent manager, told him he needed a new name, one that sounded like a rock star. He suggested Cliff, because it sounded strong and British, like a cliff face. Richard was chosen in honor of Little Richard, the American rock star. And so, Cliff Richard was born. He didn't just change his name. He changed British music forever. On August 29, 1958, he released a song called Move It. It was loud, raw, and rebellious, unlike anything in British music at the time. Cliff was only 18, but the song hit number 2 on the UK charts. For the first time, British teens had their own rock star. He wasn't copying America. He was starting something new. That one song opened the door for artists like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. But it wasn't just the music that made him famous. It was the madness. In 1958, when he went on tour, British teens went crazy. Girls screamed, cried, and fainted. Boys were jealous. It was like Elvis Presley mania, but in the UK. Security guards couldn't control the crowds. This had never happened in Britain before. Newspapers called it Cliff hysteria. In 1959, Cliff released a song called Living Doll. He didn't like it at first. He thought it was too soft and fake. But his band changed the style to a country ballad, and it became a massive hit. It stayed at number 1 for 6 weeks and sold over 770,000 copies. He received a silver disc in November and a gold one by January. That same year, Travelin' Light also went to number 1. Between these two songs, he sold more than 1 million records, something no one in Britain had done before. He even made it to Hollywood. In 1959, he acted in a serious movie called Serious Charge. It tackled heavy topics like false accusations and homosexuality. People were surprised he took such a serious role at only 19 years old. The next year, he starred in Espresso Bongo, a film that made fun of the music industry. With these roles, Cliff showed he was more than just a teen singer. He could act, too. Then came Summer Holiday, in 1963. At the London premiere, 3,000 fans showed up and surrounded his car. He couldn't even get inside the cinema. But the movie's music hit number 1 before the film was even shown in theaters. The soundtrack stayed at number 1 for 14 weeks. Songs like The Next Time, Bachelor Boy, and Summer Holiday were huge hits. The movie became the second biggest box office hit in the UK that year, just behind the James Bond movie, From Russia with Love. Cliff was also voted the most popular film star in the UK. Then the Beatles arrived. Many people thought Cliff's time was over. But in 1964, right in the middle of Beatlemania, Cliff had 6 top 10 hits, while the Beatles had only 5. Songs like Constantly, On the Beach, and I Could Easily Fall in Love with You kept him in the spotlight. Even as the Beatles changed music history, Cliff stayed strong. Paul McCartney once said they went to Hamburg because Cliff already ruled British music. John Lennon admitted that before Cliff's song Move It, there was nothing good to listen to in England. In 1965, a music magazine called NME asked fans around the world to vote for their favorite male singer. Cliff beat Elvis Presley, John Lennon, and Paul McCartney. Even though the Beatles released albums like Help and Rubber Soul that year, Cliff still came out on top. He had found his own path, balancing pop songs, faith, and a clean image. People trusted him. Then something truly surprising happened. In 1966, Cliff stood on stage at a Billy Graham event and told thousands of people that he had become a Christian. This was broadcast nationwide. Fans were shocked. Some cried. Others were confused. Rock stars weren't supposed to talk about religion in the 1960s. They were supposed to be rebellious and wild. At first, Cliff thought he might quit music. He didn't know if he could stay in the spotlight as a Christian. Music insiders said his career was over. But instead of quitting, Cliff did something new. He didn't hide his faith, and he didn't stop performing. He became the first big UK pop star to openly live a Christian life while still making hit songs. That had never been done before. He later said that his rock star image had always been fake. He used to pretend to be confident, but he really wasn't. After becoming a Christian, he finally felt like himself. His music even improved because he was no longer trying to play a role. He was just being real. But by the mid-1970s, his career slowed down. In 1975, he didn't have any songs in the charts. People thought he was done. Then came Devil Woman in 1976. It was darker, louder, and totally different. It reached number 9 in the UK and number 6 in the US, selling over 2 million copies. It was his first American top 10 hit. Suddenly, even rock legends like Jimmy Page and Eric Clapton started supporting him. Cliff was cool again. In 1987, 25 years into his career, Cliff released a modern album called Always Guaranteed. It went platinum, stayed in the charts for 24 weeks, and sold over 1.3 million copies. He proved he could still compete with younger stars. Then in 1988, he released Mistletoe and Wine, a gentle Christmas song. It went straight to number 1 and became the biggest UK single of the year. It still earns him over $100,000 a year, even decades later. In May 1989, Cliff released his 100th single. No other British artist had ever done that. To celebrate, he invited 2,000 fans to the London Palladium and let them pick the song. The Best of Me came in second and became a hit, reaching number 2 in the UK and charting around the world. That summer, he held a huge concert at Wembley Stadium called The Event. It wasn't just another show, it was a celebration of his whole career. Wembley was packed with fans, young and old. It was proof that Cliff Richard had lasted through every era of music and still had the power to move people. She was in love with someone else. Cliff Richard admitted in his memoir The Dreamer that he never told Olivia Newton-John how deeply he felt, respecting her relationships and choosing friendship over romantic pursuit. He cherished their bond so much that he feared expressing his love might ruin it. She went on to marry others, while Cliff, quietly heartbroken, never did. Olivia's passing in 2022 devastated him. In tribute, Cliff called her the perfect friend, and broke down during televised memorials. He said she died the way she lived, graciously, courageously, and with love. That final heartbreak, losing the woman he silently adored for over 50 years, was one of many personal trials he endured. Because Cliff's life, despite the chart-topping hits and glittering fame, was steeped in sacrifice. He never married, never had children, and often lived in loneliness, even while adored by millions. His Christian faith anchored him, but also cost him much: industry favor, media respect, and opportunities. Yet, he never wavered. Then came the darkest chapter. 2014. Cliff's home was raided live on BBC television, broadcast without charge, without warning. The police had no warrant. The allegations were baseless. It later emerged the BBC had made a secret deal to film it. Cliff was shattered. He lost sleep, lost weight, and suffered from shingles. For 2 years, he was under investigation. No charges were ever brought, but the damage was irreversible. "They contaminated my home," he said. "I couldn't live there anymore." He sued, and won. In 2018, he was awarded £210,000 in damages from the BBC. But even victory couldn't fully restore his peace. Cliff said the experience aged him more than any decade in music ever had. It was a betrayal not just of privacy, but of dignity. And yet, even after that, he kept going. He released new albums, toured the UK, and celebrated his 80th birthday with a new record. By 2024, he had sold over 250 million records worldwide, landed 14 UK #1 singles, and became the only artist to chart in 8 consecutive decades. From the dusty streets of British India to Wembley Stadium, from early heartbreak to public humiliation, from teen idol to devout believer, Cliff Richard endured. Not by shouting the loudest or chasing the spotlight, but by showing up again and again, with grace, resilience, and unwavering faith. He didn't just outlast the industry, he transcended it. Because Cliff Richard is not just a singer. He's a survivor. And in many ways, the last rock star of his kind. Tell us in the comments below. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.